today's episode, we'll be exploring the topic of finding balance between your own health and well-being, being a full-time parent, wife, and working full-time. This is something that I think many of you can relate to, how to fit it all in. In today's episode, we meet Megan Eddinger, who has managed to do just this. She has managed to find a balance between her own training schedule, health, and well-being, being a full-time mom, wife, and employee. How did she do this? And how can you do this? What are some of the tools and strategies that Megan has used to find a balance? In this episode, we'll hear her strategies and tools that she has used for doing just this. We'll also hear from Megan that even as role models, mentors, moms, and dads, we are human and still struggle and fall off the horse from time to time. When this happens, how do you find the motivation to get back up and keep going? Megan will share her thoughts on this as well. Megan is a full-time wife, mother of three, fitness coach, and host of the NoBSMama podcast. You can follow her on Instagram, the NoBSMama. Welcome, everyone, again to another episode of the Be Well, Be Safe, Be Happy, Eat Ice Cream podcast. And with me today is Megan. Megan, thanks so much for being here. How are you doing?
Thank you, Brad. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to have you because you've got an incredible story. You're obviously very, very busy, a mom raising three children. And one of the things that piqued my interest in your story is this idea that you were able to prioritize your health and wellness and well-being in addition to, working and, being a mom and all of that. And I know that's something that people struggle with is how do you prioritize your health and well-being when you're still working and still raising kids and all of that? So let's start there. How are you able to make yourself a priority in addition to, all that other crazy stuff you have going on?
Yeah. A couple things. First and foremost, I have an amazing support system. So my husband was very supportive and is very supportive. Always happy to, watch the kids so that I could go for my run or whatever. So that was extremely helpful. And in addition to that, recognizing just getting things in when you can, right? I used to fall into the trap of if I don't have an hour or an hour and a half to dedicate to going to the gym, I may as well not even go, right? But going for a walk on your lunch break or taking a 20-minute run on your lunch break so you can take a quick shower and get back to work makes a big difference, right? So instead of doing nothing, just doing those little bits, they add up.
So instead of like an hour and a half, you would try to find like 5 minutes here or 10 minutes there or 20 minutes here or something like that?
Exactly.
Okay. But what was it about you that made you say, oh, I really need to do this and take care of my health and well-being?
Yeah. So I had my children very early in life, right after high school. And so I went from being, a student athlete to being a mom. And I thought at that time that, same thing. Like I don't have time to exercise.
Yeah.
I was way out of shape compared to what I was used to. So it was like really defeating whenever I would try because I wasn't as fast or as strong as I was used to. And so I just fell into this thing of I'm working full time. I have all these kids. I'm going to school. I'll just never have time for that. And that was a story that I told myself for a really long time. I'm so sorry about that.
Phone ringing, no problem. We'll just go with the flow.
My music just started to play. I turned off my ringer.
We just go with the flow here. That's how life works. So no worries.
So that was a story that I told myself for a really long time, but I felt awful and I wasn't, paying attention to what I was eating and all of those types of things. And at the same time, I was noticing that my mental health was struggling. I was always really tense, really short-tempered, really angry. And I finally got to the point that I was like, I have to do something. A gym schedule, like a fitness class isn't going to work for me because my schedule's all over the place. I never know when I'm going to have a babysitter or when my kids are going to cooperate, that sort of thing. So I decided to learn to love running. Because, as an athlete, running is always your punishment, right? When your team is goofing off or whatever, you run laps, right?
Uh-huh.
So I didn't have a healthy relationship with running. That was always a punishment, but I was like, I can do this on my schedule whenever I can fit it in. So I have to learn how to love this thing. So I did the Couch to 5K program and I absolutely loved it. Highly, highly recommend if you're looking to getting into running. That was a great like ease into it. And you have to remember this was before like smartphones and apps. So to do this, I had to like write down my workout on my hand so that I knew when to run, when to walk, when to do all these things. So anyway, I fell in love with running and I got to 5K, which is 3 miles. And then I stayed there for, a little while. And then I like went out one day. I was, trying to run off some emotion and I just kept running and I ran for 5 miles. And once I got there, it was like, I found like a comfortable pace. I felt like I could just keep going. Right. So then I started half marathons and then a marathon and then triathlons. I just kept like building. And as I got more and more into these things, I started making friends and we started to push each other. So it became like a lot of things. It was my alone time. It was my therapy. It was my mental health, my physical health, and my social time. So it was a lot easier to work it into my schedule than once I had all of these other things besides just, I need to exercise.
You're just like me, that you're the Couch to 5K that just kept going and going. You're literally my exact same story. That's kind of how I started out, Couch to 5K. And then, I wonder if I can do a 10K. I wonder if I can do a half marathon. And then, let's try this triathlon thing. You said something that was really interesting. The story that you were telling yourself originally was that, you didn't have an hour and a half to do this, but you switched your story to telling yourself that, hey, I've got 10 minutes here or 20 minutes here. Was there something that you latched onto that you were able to switch your story? Because a lot of people are not able to switch their story. How were you able to switch your story?
I think a lot of it happened, kind of by accident because I would start a workout and I did a lot of my workouts from home with like at-home videos or whatever. So I would start a workout and then have to stop halfway through. And at that point, I had a decision to either be like frustrated and mad and, not start again the next day, or I could just be happy with what I got in because I could have just not done anything. Right. And so once I got into this routine of, enjoying my time exercising, 4 or 5 times a week, then I was able to just be happy with the time that I was able to get in.
So you just started celebrating what little you were able to do, no matter what it was. And so the health became a big part of your life then, it sounds like. And how did that transition into being like a better mom or a better wife or any of that?
Yeah, well, like I said, it was for me, there's still, I'm a group fitness instructor. I do a lot of things, but there's still nothing that compares to that runner's high. Okay. Like no matter what, that's like my go-to. And, it got to the point initially where, at first I was running just, so that I could slim down and, all of that kind of stuff. But eventually it got to the point that I noticed that I was a lot more patient when I was like running routinely and taking care of myself. So if we had a week that I wasn't able to get that in, my husband would be like, do you want me to watch the kids so you can go for a run tomorrow?
Nice.
So yeah, it wasn't just something that I noticed. It was something that he noticed. And like I mentioned in the beginning, he was very supportive. So he was always happy to, take the kids. When I did my races, they would get up at, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning and come with and cheer me on the sidelines. And that was always, I think it was fun for them. It was fun for them at certain points.
That's great for kids to get up that early. Yeah, mine would never do it. So
yeah. Yeah. But it was fun for them to like, they would meet me at different points along the course and we would high five. And sometimes they would finish the race with me. Like those little moments, I think mean a lot to them, but also to me. And they really kept me going.
Now, your journey is similar to mine, so I'm going to ask you 2 questions that I get asked a lot that I'm dying to know someone else has a very similar journey, how you would answer these. So first one is, so somebody's sitting at home, they're listening to this right now, they're on the couch, they are where you were, however many years ago, and they want to get started. What would you say to that person? Like, how do you get up off the couch to get going and get started?
Yeah, I would say first of all, to take the pressure off yourself to go a certain distance or to spend a certain amount of time, and to experiment a little bit. So give yourself a week or two to kind of, try different things and see what you like and what you're going to look forward to. Because for me, I'm going to look forward to going for a walk or a run outside 100% of the time. I don't care if it's raining. I don't care if it's 100 degrees. I prefer to be outside than to be on a treadmill.
Wow.
Now
you are me.
Yeah. Snow and ice is a little different. I do prefer the treadmill then, but I don't look forward to it. It's just something that I have to do. Right. But if you're, going to the gym and walking on the treadmill and you're not enjoying it, that might be why. Maybe you need some sunshine. Right. So there's that. And then, yeah, just taking the pressure off. Like I used to pressure myself like, oh, I have to run a mile in 10 minutes. Well, that wasn't realistic for where I was. Right.
Oh, what can I relate to that? Yeah.
Yeah. Taking your time, finding a comfortable pace and then pushing yourself from there, I think is really important, because otherwise I think it's easy to get frustrated and defeated and not want to do it anymore.
Yeah, starting very slow, simple, and easy. KISS, keep it short and simple. That's how I use that acronym. But okay, so next question, I get asked this one a lot too. And so you are a runner and a triathlete, which involves a lot of training, as I know. It's a lot of early morning hours, a lot of sacrifice. That's time you're not with your kids. And as you mentioned, you've got a great support system and all that. Mm-hmm. The question I get asked all the time, which I'm dying to hear what you say about this, is how do you find the discipline to do it all? To train, to be a mom, to be a wife, all that.
So in the case of the triathlon, we did 3 of them. And I say we because my husband did it with me and a friend from work.
Wow.
And we were all kind of struggling in the discipline department because we all had kids, we all, work, all of that, typical stuff. And so our friend created a spreadsheet of like, this many laps in the pool, this many miles on the bike, this many miles for your run or whatever. And there's some kind of point system involved. So at the end of the month, whoever earned the most points, like won for the month. There was no prize, but It was like a bragging rights type of thing. Uh-huh. And that was what kept us going. Like there were nights where, I would be like winding down, getting ready for bed, like after dinner. And I would see Chris would put, his training and I'd be like, shit, I fell behind. So I would get up and I would get down on the treadmill and I'd go run for 5 miles real quick. And it was just
real quick. 5 miles is like 45 minutes or something. That's not real quick.
Yeah. So it pushed my bedtime back from like 10 o'clock till midnight, even though I was getting up at 5 a.m. But it was just one of those things. It was just like, there was that competitive part of me that was like, oh, I have to eat, at least keep up. I can't fall behind, Chris.
Yeah. Okay, so that's very interesting. So let me segue into something we were talking a little bit about off camera. I've certainly been through this cycle. I think anyone who's trained goes through these cycles of up, down, where like you're really training and then you're not training so much and you just don't feel like it right now. So sometimes how do you deal with some of the struggles and challenges that come when you just don't feel like training or whatever? Or maybe you're in that phase where I just don't want to do anything right now.
Yeah. So for me, again, because of that like competitive piece of me, I have to always be signed up for my next race or I won't, I won't make the time. I'll fall into old patterns. Yeah. So that's one thing for me, but I do recognize, especially, something like a full marathon or a triathlon or something that is like, a lot of dedication, a lot of time, a lot of energy. You get to the end of that and you're like, I don't want to ever see a bike ever again, or I don't ever.
I'm guilty of that. Yeah.
I don't ever want to put my running shoes back on ever again. Like that was awful. Whose idea was that?
I don't ever want to go to the pool at 4:30 in the morning when the pool's like 86 degrees and that's freezing at 4:30 in the morning and swim another lap. Like, no, thank you. Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like one of those things, for the moms out there, it's like having a baby. Like the event itself is like hard and it's stressful and it takes everything out of you. But, next week it's like, well, I could probably do that again, because the reward is worth it. Right. So that's one thing is to always, for me, it's always like keeping something on my calendar to keep me motivated. For me, COVID, took that away from me. For me, virtual events are just not the same. And I hate to say it because, race directors and organizations and everything, they tried really hard. But it's just not the same, in my opinion. So during COVID, I had, a really hard time with my mental health, with, not being able to see people, with not being able to do all of these events and these things that I like to do. And I lost all of my motivation. And so that is when I learned that my mental health and my physical health were very closely tied together. If I neglect one, then the other falls off. So whichever one, if I decide, I'm going to eat out 5 days this week and, not pay attention to what I'm doing with my diet, then I'm a lot less likely to run or to exercise or to do those things, which means I'm a lot less likely to get up early in the morning and do my journal and do my meditation. Like it's this spiral that I noticed that is actually really interesting to me. And now that I know that about myself, I can be a lot more aware of my behaviors so that I don't go down that spiral. But when you are in it, and you're not feeling motivated and you don't feel good, and you're lacking energy, it is really, really tough to get back to these things, even if they're things that you love. And so I would encourage you, if you are someone who has, experience doing all of these things and you love them, but now for whatever reason, whether it's because you've had children or because you got busy at work or because of an illness or whatever it is, and you're kind of wanting to get back into it, but you're still like stuck in this funk. I do encourage you, just like I said before, to take baby steps, do something small, recognize that you're not going to be as strong or as fast as you were the last time you did it. And that's okay. You can build back up to that. Right. So there's that. And then the other thing, again, for me is that social piece. Find someone to do it with you, whether it's, if it's a partner, that would be amazing. If it's, a friend, or even if it's someone that, you don't get to train specifically with, like you can't go running with them or whatever. If they're also signed up for something, you can kind of keep each other motivated, like from afar. It doesn't have to be, your neighbor.
Exactly. So are you signed up for something right now? Are you training for something right now?
I am not. So I'm like this close to registering for the Philly half marathon in November, but I just haven't pulled the trigger yet.
It's funny. I raced for 5 years, like straight, like, oh my gosh, like 3, 4, 5 events a month throughout the entire year in multiple states. And my last big race was in 2017, and I got really burned out with racing. And since then, I've only done some small 5Ks, I think, and a couple 5 milers, some trail races.
Yeah.
What we've said a lot here, Megan, and what would you say to someone that, I don't know, maybe you haven't said yet about all this? If you were to kind of summarize all this right now.
If I were to summarize this, I would say, again, that expectation piece is huge. The experimentation piece is huge. Maybe you're someone who used to run a lot, 3, 4 races a month or whatever. And you want to do something, but maybe that doesn't appeal to you. Maybe try a spin class. There are a ton of them. They're a ton of fun. That's how I kind of got back into, doing things. And that has everything. That has the social aspect, that has the discipline, it has the financial commitment because they're not cheap, right? All of those things are kind of tied in there. But I think it's really important to find something that you love and look forward to, and something that your body responds well to. Like running right now and cardio in general is kind of getting a bad reputation, I think, online and in the fitness community. I think that it's very individual, right? So maybe in general, it's not great to do a bunch of cardio all the time. Maybe we should start, incorporating other things. But I don't think that means that if you enjoy running and you like to do half marathons or whatever, that you have to stop. I think you can do those things if you like them and your body seems like it's tolerating them.
Let me ask you this also. Have you come out of the COVID fog, I guess, so to speak? How are you doing there? How's your mental health now?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I am on the other end mentally. I feel way better mentally than I have probably ever felt. which is a really good place to be, with a lot of, therapy, some help with some medicine, all of that kind of stuff, lots of work. And now I'm starting to get back to that physical side. So like I mentioned, I'm a group fitness instructor. I'm cleaning up my diet. Like I was in a place during COVID that I was like, like a rock bottom type of situation. I wasn't getting outside. I wasn't going for my runs, or even a walk was like just too much energy for me. Yeah. And that's a scary place to be for someone who has, done the things that I've done.
Well, I'm curious, did your children notice that, or your husband or anything? And how did that work?
They definitely noticed
Yeah.
the shift in my mental health. I don't know that they made the connection between, me not enjoying the things that I used to enjoy. But it would be crazy for me to say that they did not notice and or were not affected by the state of my mental health. So that was also something that was, really hard, because I felt like I lost a lot of time with my family during, that year or 2 years. And, my kids are older. They are, what day is it? So they're 12. Oh. Yeah, it's 12, 14, and 18. So I'm sending one off to college here in a couple weeks.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And, it never gets...
Be nice to them when they come home on they like screwed something up. So
I know. But it never gets easier to miss out on time with them, whether they're infants or toddlers or, teenagers. The idea that, I miss time with them sucks. And I'm not talking about time like, oh, I chose to go for a run for 2 hours today, so I missed out on like Saturday morning TV time. I'm talking about like, I wasn't able to participate in dinner time conversations because my mental health was so bad. And so you have to kind of pick and choose, right? Because I would rather miss 2 hours of Saturday morning TV and be able to like interact with them and play with them and have energy for them when I get home, than to not take care of myself and not prioritize my own physical and mental needs, and then be completely depleted and not be able to interact and engage with them and have energy for them for normal things.
Yeah. It sounds like you found balance, though. Balance between prioritizing yourself and, of course, your family. And I don't know, did I ask you this? Do you work full time also, or? I mean,
I do.
Coach.
Yeah. So I work from home, which is helpful.
Okay.
But yeah, the kids, they're at an age now where they're all involved in some kind of sport. So they have games, during the week for the high schooler. We have games, all weekend long. We travel for sports. So that also makes it really hard to, commit to a training schedule if you are, in a hotel most weekends and you don't have your partner there because the other kid is in a different state in a different hotel. So it's not as easy as it used to be when we all had like the same routine, going to the same places, doing the same things.
Yeah. I think if I could take away one thing from this podcast today to share with folks that are listening, you've done a really outstanding job of learning to pick and choose. You can't do it all the time. And I think a lot of us, we try to do it all the time, and that just doesn't work. But you've been able to pick and choose. Okay, I can only get 20 minutes of training, and whether, it's a walk or something, I'm just going to do those 20 minutes. And now I've got to give 30 minutes or an hour to my family or whatever. So I think that's key, just really in order to find that balance and to prioritize between yourself, your health and your well-being, and your family and all that, is picking and choosing.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, just like I just mentioned with the race schedule not being, something that's as easy to fit in as it used to be. That's something that I kind of came to terms with. Like, this is a season of my life. This is not forever, right? This is the season that I'm in. And I could choose to still, do the races and do the things. And I could make it work. I honestly just don't want to right now. And so that's why I'm like, I really do want to run this half marathon, just because it's been so long since I have. But looking at the schedule, I'm like, is it realistic? It is. I just am being wishy-washy.
Yeah. And I was going to say just now, when you talked about running the half marathon, I'm so keen to body language. Your eyes lit up, you got excited, your voice
Mhm.
changed. So it's in there. So stop being wishy-washy, I guess, and sign up for it, because I can tell you're passionate about that, and you want to do that. So,
Yeah.
well, Megan, anything else? I think I kind of maybe asked this, but anything else you want to say again before we kind of sign off here?
I would just like to speak to the moms. If there's a mom listening and you feel like, you want to do these things, but your to-do list is a mile long, and maybe your partner is getting to the gym and you're kind of like resentful, like that must be nice for them, whatever. I would just ask you, like, who told you that all of your stuff had to be done before you deserve to take this time for yourself, right? Like,
That's a good point.
yeah, in a lot of cases, your partner is not saying, I can go to the gym because my stuff is done, but you have to do the dishes, so you're not allowed to go. Like, that's a story we tell ourselves. And it creates friction in our relationship because we feel like they have free time and freedom and we don't. But the reality is that they're not putting that on us. We're putting it on ourselves. So I would say to, take a look in the mirror, honestly, and, recognize that you are worth it and you are deserving. And if this is something that you want to do, not only do you deserve to make the time to do it yourself, but you also deserve to ask for the help that you need from your partner to make it happen.
Wow, that's huge. That's huge. And Megan, do you have your own podcast, and do you have a website, or how can people reach out to you if they want to get in touch with you? Or
I do. Thank you. I don't have a website yet, but I do have a podcast. It's called the NoBSMama
I
podcast.
love
And
that. I love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. And you can listen wherever you listen to this podcast.
Okay, so Spotify, Google, Apple, all of the
Yep.
above. And do you, I think I saw you have an Instagram, No BS Mama or something like that also?
I do. Yep. I'm at the NoBSMama on Instagram as well. That's where I'm most active. And I do also have a free Facebook community. If you want, I can put that in the show notes for you as well.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't think I have your Facebook connection. So,
Okay.
and I know you mostly, like, your niche audience is moms mostly.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And I just want to say, for all the dads out there, that a lot of this applies to you too. So
That is true.
coming from that background. Well, anyway, Megan, I sure appreciate you being here today. One of the things I like about doing this podcast is I get to interview incredible people like you, and I've taken a lot away from this. I know this idea of trying to prioritize yourself and trying to prioritize your family. I've been kind of lucky because it's just me now, so I don't have to worry about some of that, where I know a lot of people do. I can just prioritize myself, which makes it easier, but that's not realistic for a lot of people. You've given a great example of how in fact, I'm going to go back and change some of the show notes, and I'm going to go back and change my pre-recorded intro that we did. Because you've really given us an idea of how you balance this, the health and well-being journey with the family journey with the work journey. So great job on all of that. Then keep going. And I will expect to see something on this half marathon, this Philly half marathon, and because you're smiling now. Yeah, so I know you want to do it. So I'll expect to see, like, I don't know, a sign up or a time thing or something like that. So
Perfect. Yep.
I'll do it.
I'll tag you in it.
Okay. Do that, please. I'll do an updated show notes with that too. So, but anyway, again, for the listeners, thank you so much for being here. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please share this episode far and wide. Please go visit Megan's podcast, which, Megan, the name of your podcast again is?
The NoBSMama.
The No BS Mama, which you can find that anywhere you listen to podcasts. Leave us both that 5-star review. We would definitely appreciate that. And as I always like to say, until next time, this is Coach Brad. Be well, be safe, be happy, eat ice cream. Take care, everyone. Thank you. We'll see you next time.